Our tale begins with the Johnson family, brimming with excitement as they pull up the gravel driveway to their new home, the ancient, imposing Old Manor House. The majestic yet dilapidated structure stood there, a testament to forgotten times. Its overgrown garden, a jungle of untamed nature, whispered tales of the past. Inside, the creaking wooden floors echoed under their steps as if crying out their own stories of the ages. The family's eyes were drawn to the portraits adorning the walls, their gaze seemingly following each member, a constant silent vigil. Then there was little Lucy, the youngest of the Johnson clan. Her wide eyes spotted a figure at an upstairs window, an eerie sight that escaped the rest of the family. No one else saw it, and thus it was dismissed as a child's imagination running wild. Unfazed by the eerie atmosphere, the Johnson family were eager to settle into their new home, oblivious of the chilling events that were about to unfold. As darkness fell on their first night, the manor seemed to take on a life of its own. The family, nestled within the stone walls of the ancient house, found themselves enveloped by a silence so profound it was almost deafening. Yet it wasn't long before this silence was broken. Echoing through the grand halls came a symphony of strange noises, a nocturnal orchestra that seemed to be playing only for them. Footsteps, soft and hesitant, seemed to drift down from the upper floors, while whispers, too faint to be understood, seemed to seep from the very walls themselves. Doors creaked open, unguided by human hands, adding to the eerie concerto. The family, huddled together in the drawing room, tried to dismiss these unsettling sounds as the house merely settling, the ancient wood and stone groaning under the weight of years. But then there was Lucy, the youngest of the clan, with wide, innocent eyes that held an unfiltered view of the world. She insisted, with a trembling voice and wide-eyed fear, that she saw the same spectral figure she had glimpsed from the window earlier. It was standing, she claimed, at the foot of her bed, watching her with an intensity that made her skin crawl. Her parents tried to soothe her, dismissing the figure as a trick of the light or a shadow cast by an old piece of furniture. But the conviction in Lucy's voice, the terror in her eyes, lingered in the air, a palpable tension that not even their comforting words could fully dispel. Despite the unsettling occurrences, the family tried to dismiss it as imagination and nerves. They laughed off the footsteps as echoes from another room, the whispers as the wind whistling through ancient cracks, the doors as the result of a draft. But as they settled down for the night, their laughter felt hollow, their smiles forced. In the pit of their stomachs, a seed of dread had been planted, and they could not shake off the growing sense of unease that had begun to infest the old manor house. In the light of day, the manor seemed less menacing, but the peace was short-lived. As the sun rose high, the shadows of the previous night seemed like mere figments of their imagination. But this sense of calm and safety was nothing more than a cruel illusion. The manor had a mind of its own, it seemed. Objects began moving with no one touching them. A cup would rattle on the table, a book would fall off a shelf. Every day the family would wake up to find their belongings in places they hadn't left them. The lights would flicker on and off, often leaving them in complete darkness for a few terrifying seconds. Cold spots appeared around the house, places where the temperature would drop so drastically it would send shivers down their spines. It was as if an unseen presence was passing by, leaving a trail of bone-chilling cold in its wake. The figure Lucy had seen on their first night started appearing more frequently, not just to her but to the other family members as well. A fleeting glimpse from the corner of the eye, a silhouette in the mirror, a shadow that moved against the light. The figure was everywhere and nowhere, always out of sight but never out of mind. Their dog, a usually cheerful and playful creature, began to act out of character. He would whine and whimper, his tail tucked between his legs, refusing to enter certain rooms. It was as if he could sense something the family couldn't, a presence that made his hair stand on end and his instincts scream danger. The manor was no longer just an old house, it was a living, breathing entity that seemed to thrive on their fear. It was a silent observer, a watcher in the shadows, a ghostly presence that was growing more tangible with each passing day. Faced with the undeniable, the Johnsons began to realize they were not the manor's only residents. The house had been theirs in name only. In reality, they were sharing it with the spirits of the past, the former residents who had never truly left. The haunting had begun. Desperate for answers, the Johnsons began to delve into the manor's past. Their quest for understanding led them to the dusty corners of the local library, where brittle pages of history waited to be unraveled. They discovered that the manor once belonged to a wealthy couple, the Harcourts. This couple, much like the Johnsons, had been drawn to the manor's charm and grandeur, but their fairy tale life in the manor was short-lived. One fateful night, both members of the couple were found lifeless in their home, their faces pale and eyes wide open in terror. The cause of their death remained shrouded in mystery. The local authorities had no explanation, leaving the town to speculate and the tale to become folklore. The Johnsons could not help but draw a chilling parallel between their experiences and the tragic fate of the Harcourts. The apparitions they had been seeing, the whispers they heard in the dead of night, the inexplicable cold spots, it all started to make a terrifying sense. The figures were not random specters, but the restless spirits of the Harcourts, bound to the manor by the eerie circumstances of their demise. As they dove deeper into the past, they unearthed a haunting photograph of the Harcourts. The woman bore a striking resemblance to the apparition Mrs. Johnson had seen in the mirror, and the man to the ghostly figure that had appeared to their children. It was a bone-chilling revelation. The Johnsons were living with the spirits of the manor's former residents, sharing their home with entities trapped between this world and the next. However, much like pieces of a sinister puzzle falling into place, the Johnsons' investigation raised more questions than it answered. They now knew who they were sharing their home with, but the question remained. What did these spirits want? The answer to this question, they feared, was buried deep within the manor's walls, waiting to be discovered in the shadowy corners of the rooms they now called home. As the paranormal activities intensified, the Johnsons had to make a decision. It was becoming clear that peaceful coexistence with the spirits of the old manor house was not an option. The spectral inhabitants were growing restless, their ethereal forms becoming more pronounced, their actions more unpredictable. The once charming old manor had become a chilling battleground. The Johnsons tried to understand, to sympathize. After all, they were intruders in the ghostly residents' eternal home. But understanding turned to fear, and fear turned to terror, when one of their own, the youngest, little Billy, began to act strangely. His once bright eyes now held a vacant stare, his playful laughter replaced by an eerie silence. Billy's transformation was gradual, almost imperceptible at first. He began to speak in hushed whispers to unseen companions, his small fingers tracing patterns in the air as if conducting a silent orchestra. But then, the unthinkable happened. Billy was no longer Billy. He spoke in a voice not his own. His demeanor changed. His actions became unpredictable. The once innocent child was now a vessel for a spirit that had once claimed the old manor house as its own. Fear gripped the family. They were confronted with a reality they had only seen in horror films. Now, it was their reality. They had to decide to stay and fight for their child, their home, against an enemy they couldn't see or understand, or to flee, to seek solace in the familiar, the safe. In the face of such adversity, they chose to fight. They reached out to professionals, individuals who understood the paranormal, who could help them reclaim their home, their child. It was a decision born out of desperation, but also determination. A decision that would set the stage for the final confrontation with the spectral inhabitants of the old manor house. A decision that echoed throughout the ancient halls of their home, a declaration of war against the unseen. In the face of such terrifying events, the Johnsons knew they had to fight or flee. The old manor house, once a symbol of hope for a new beginning, had become a chilling nightmare. The Johnson family, once filled with dreams of a fresh start, found themselves with no choice but to abandon their new home. The haunting memories and ghostly apparitions had proven too much. As they prepared to leave, the house seemed to give a final, chilling performance. A spectral figure appeared at the top of the grand staircase, watching as if bidding a cold farewell. The chilling air seemed to whisper ancient secrets, and the walls echoed with eerie laughter, as if the house itself was reveling in its victory. The family hurriedly left, carrying with them the chilling memories of their short-lived stay. The old manor house, with its creaking doors and shadowy halls, remained, silent, waiting. It stood tall and ominous, ready to welcome its next occupants. As the Johnsons left, the old manor house stood as a chilling reminder that some pasts refuse to be forgotten.